Reader Mail.
Number 11.
Hello and welcome to Triangle Square, the PlayStation Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me, take it from the top.
Not a Triangle Square PlayStation podcast, but a Triangle Squared
Reader
PlayStation
Mail.
production. This is Saul Bridges bringing you
Production.
This is Saul Bridges bringing you guys Reader Mail number 11, and alongside me, like he already introduced himself, Brett Beck. Hey, there's notifications on there, sir. You're in professional.
It's my work phone.
For those that don't know, you can ask us questions on Twitter at any given time you see a Reader Mail tweet pinned to our profile. I used to say Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. However, it stays pinned to our profile for free any time of day or night. Go ask that. But on Facebook at Triangle Squared, a PlayStation Podcast. It is a Facebook group. Go join it. You won't see me because I don't have Facebook. And, of course, our Patreon, newly added as well, that we seem to get a good amount of questions on, is our Discord. And, of course, you guys can find all these links in the description below if you ever want to see us. And look forward to Reader Mails bi-weekly on Fridays at 5 p.m. Central Time. And, of course, you will get the main show every Monday at noon Central Time. And we're going to be doing something a little bit special for E3 this year. So you guys tag along for that. We won't be streaming anything Triangle Squared. It'll all be Nartec because there's no PlayStation. So I believe Microsoft is the very first E3 conference, right?
If I'm not mistaken, early Sunday.
We'll double check that, and I think it's 4 p.m. Central Time for us, but we will be planning on streaming with that alongside Blaze. He'll be here hanging out with us as well, since this will be the Nartec guys. And we look forward to seeing everybody show up and stream. We will be announcing a Twitch stream on YouTube. We're gonna do a short little video and upload it straight to YouTube, telling you guys to go check out our streams out. And then we'll be posting Twitter, Facebook, Discord, everywhere there is to check us out, so you guys can get our link there. But it is twitch.tv/Nartec Gaming.
Yep.
So for that. But anyways, Brett, we're going to start with Facebook, I guess. Why don't you lead us off with Facebook?
One more thing I didn't hear you mention. Since this is the Reader Mail and a little more loose, we can finally talk about the off-topic that we've started and go on full in with the name, which is dickish at best. So if you like listening to these Reader Mails, which are a little more off the cuff and kind of just Saul and I kind of talking with each other and going over different stories and stuff, think about that with Blaze added into the mix and with a little less structure. It's not questions necessarily, just us talking. I've been having fun doing it, even though it's one of those things where we are finding our footing of how to do a podcast that's not structured like we normally do.
It's just very unstructured.
But it's fun.
It's as if you were just watching us hang out. It's really what it is.
That is the spirit of the show.
And we won't change that spirit. So
yeah, go check it out if you want to. And sadly, I've not gotten confirmation that it's up on iTunes yet, which is mind-blowing.
It probably
to me.
won't be due to them making Apple Podcast here soon. So you're going to probably see things change. But let us know whether it's on Twitter, Discord, in the YouTube comments if you do ask us stuff, or if you do listen to us on iTunes, because it's kind of important to us to know, and we can't ever get concrete numbers for that. So I am curious.
We can now. I've finally gotten to our Podcast Connect thing, which
is
shows
that concrete,
you exactly.
Though?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Never mind then. Disregard that last part. But let us know if you watch on iTunes. I'm curious. Think about getting an iPhone, maybe. Also, one more thing to bring up before we do hop into the questions.
Okay.
Is that we won't be doing questions from YouTube anymore. We tried that for a while. We never got any questions. So if you are listening to older episodes and you want to ask us a question, feel free to join our Discord. If you don't have social media of any kind like I do, except I help run the Twitter. But anyways, you won't see me on Facebook, like I said. But yeah, Discord's our fun little chat. We have multiple channels for everything. And I do believe, talking to our good buddy Blake, that we may open a movies channel. Because he's been talking to me about an app that's really, really cool. But anyways, on to the questions. And I think we're starting with Facebook first, right?
Yeah, I was going to, but I got to scroll down to it, and it moved around on me.
That's fine. We'll do Facebook, Twitter, then Discord. And like I said, guys, for Twitter, we are changing it up. I will post tweets throughout the week instead of every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, just to remind you guys. And that way it's not on a schedule that you guys think you have to follow. And it's just real easy to go to and see. And once you see the tweet, you just know that you can ask us a question, and it could be 1 a.m. or 1 a.m. your time, and all questions are getting answered. So It'll be fine.
Okay, I think I'm coming up to it, and a lot of Dauntless stuff on our Facebook group because of Josh sharing it.
I heard good things about it.
It looks okay. I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but yeah, it's a free game. Yeah. I agree.
I'm waiting until June 7th to get Days Gone for that smooth $40.
Here we are.
Sure.
Right here. So we have reader mail submissions through Facebook first. Derek Porter, who is a patron, thank you, sir, asks, do you think free-to-play games like Fortnite, Apex Legends, Warframe, etc. have hurt or helped the gaming industry?
Helped.
Great question.
Helped.
Yeah, I agree, helped. And it's going to seem a little weird because I think a lot of people, and Saul, I think you'll agree with me on this one. I feel we've had conversations about this.
It is. I already know what you're going with. Microtransactions.
Well, it's a little different than that. I think what happens is that a lot of people are quick to, like you said, microtransactions are the thing that people linchpin on and why they don't like them.
Right.
But I think when microtransactions are used in a responsible manner, and games like this can come out via an independent studio, where they're self-published, or in Apex Legends' case, it is published by EA, but it still chose to go the free-to-play route. When you look at these things, it actually makes sense. To me, I think if anything, Warframe is the one I'm going to pick the most out of. I think Warframe has shown actually that these free-to-play games can do a lot to the industry because they can force other companies to realize how little of value they're offering for what you're having to pay for versus what a company can do for sheer free, and only having all of its funding coming from the players who enjoy the game so much that they go ahead and put money into the game to speed it up. Maybe it's not even that they don't want to speed up anything that they're getting or anything. Maybe they just want to put money into the game because they want to support the game. And I think it's blown expectations around to a point where part of the reason that these things happen is that I think when people look at Warframe, part of the reason I think Anthem was so beat up over is that as much as I enjoyed Anthem, a game like Warframe has got better content, more content, more active community of people who work for the company, digital, whatever they're called, I can't think of it right now, Digital Extremes, who are looking at player feedback and doing their best to implement that as quickly as possible and stay in communication with the rest of the people. Do you need some more slack?
No, I'm good now. Sorry if you guys heard a bump. That was my mic moving around. I'm kind of low on slack.
But it's always think about that. I think it adds a new layer of value to the industry as a whole that people have to contend with.
Right, and it makes them way more accessible to people who may not want to or can't afford $60 games or $40 games even, for that matter. And games like Path of Exile and, like Brett said, Warframe that do it greatly. I don't think that it's a massive problem. I will say that when you're talking about free-to-play games, I do not include mobile games into that conversation because mobile games are known to be pretty terrible when it comes to pay to win and microtransactions. Not saying all of them, but I'm saying the bulk majority of them. They always have tokens and stuff to buy to play more or to unlock more time or to unlock certain characters and stuff like that. And that's a little iffy on me, specifically the one that locks you out of doing certain things. Like I think Clash of Clans does that, like where you can only do so much within an hour, then you're locked off for another hour until your stuff recharges.
That's not really how it works. So it's actually, in a game like Clash of Clans, just to give you a little bit of a framing, that I actually enjoy the style of game. I don't enjoy the way they do it on a phone game because it is free, so they're looking for ways to monetize. So what happens is, much like in Warcraft 3, not World of Warcraft, you have the situation where you say, I want to build this, all right? And it does take time so that it's not immediate. It's part of a strategy thing. It's like, this is going to take this much materials and this much men and this much time. But they're never inordinate amounts of times. It's like, well, I want to build this, and throughout the 5 minutes that it takes to build that, I go to something else. In this game, the more that you build and the better and better you get, the more time you have to start waiting between being able to do something else. So it starts taking 24 hours for one thing to be built.
That's what it is. It's not, So that's the example I'm thinking of. Because I actually tried to play Clash of Clans at some point in my life. And I didn't remember the exact details, but I remember seeing that. And I was like, I'm out.
It's a genre that doesn't get used much in the normal game market anymore. So the free-to-play market comes and scoops it up. And I'll say that's another boon to the free-to-play market, is it does take genres that have sometimes been pushed away because they don't make sense from a monetary standpoint anymore, and has found a way to repopularize them on other platforms or whatever as a free-to-play method. And they're typically more budgeted games, but if you really like that style of game, and considering that the game that we're talking about, they don't come out very often, definitely on consoles, and phones are a little bit more accessible.
Command & Conquer just launched one not too long ago on mobile, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
they showed it at E3 last year.
Yeah, that's right. Right. So,
but that's a great question. I like that question because I strongly think free-to-play games are a good help for everybody.
Yep. But they can be bad, and that's just one of those things.
That's the mobile ones.
All right, so Matthew Green, also a patron, thank you guys, says, what was the point? I know I said that real weird, don't worry about it. What was the point of using the touchpad in the menu part of Days Gone? Is this part of the pad pointless?
Please don't tell me there is stuff in that game that requires you to use touchpad stuff.
Not required anywhere.
Okay, good.
Hold on. I say that maybe one thing. But it's so not in your, and it's not during gameplay. It's only in the menu.
Okay, that's fine then.
So the way it works,
it depends on how
you can
frequent.
you can tap the menu, and I think that actually you don't have to use it at all. I'm trying to remember my time with it. You can tap the touchpad to bring up the menu like you do in essentially every other game, and then you can navigate the menu from there like you would anything else. You can hit L1, R1, and move between the different parts and move between it. But
you can swipe on the touchpad.
If you want to be quicker, then what you can do is if you know that you're wanting to go to the map, then you can swipe up on the pad, and instead of it having to open up something else and then you flick over to the map, it just goes straight to the map. So it's gesture based on that. And if you say, well, I want to go to my inventory, then you just swipe left, you know what I mean, or swipe right, and then you just kind of go that route. And there's 4 directions that have key things that you would go to often enough to where if you want to utilize them in that way, it speeds it up to where, honestly, a game that I think could use this would be Destiny. Like, now that they've moved the roster thing to the slowest menu part of the whole game, it's like you're having to wait for a lot of stuff just to go over. But it'd be great if, Pursuits, sorry. If they moved Pursuits to the roster section or whatever you want to call that, and then let you have a button that dedicated always opened up straight to Pursuits, that would have been much better.
One thing I wish there was a button for is that when you have your ghost, maybe like hold your ghost down and then hold X or something to go Traveler.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Always be able to go back.
But yeah. You know, I haven't played Days Gone yet, so I'm kind of curious as to how that's going to work for me. I typically don't like stuff like that, though. So I
like that it wasn't required.
Yeah. Now that's what I mean is that like it's not going to bother me because if I have the opportunity, I'm not going to use it, which sounds to me like this game allows you to have.
Now, to offer a separate perspective, one of the people that did have a mild issue with it was Blake. And his setup was that the way that he holds his controller and his thumbsticks, he uses this part of his thumb.
Yeah, I remember him showing that picture.
So when he was moving it, he was accidentally sliding on the touchpad. That just comes down to how you hold a controller. I've seen you. That's not the way you do it, so you shouldn't have a huge problem. I accidentally swiped them to map once. And I can't remember what I was doing, but I was holding the controller in a weird way with one hand.
I'll have to see it. Can you disable it?
I don't know because it didn't bother me that much. Okay. I appreciated it for the speed. Like if I knew I was going to the map, I would just swipe up.
If you could disable it, that'll be the best case scenario. So I don't accidentally do it. But since I'm not forced to use it, it doesn't really bother me that much.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess the bigger question here is, he says, is this part of the pad pointless? I think I'm curious, Matt, if you meant like, is the touchpad in itself pointless, or is this part of trying to use it pointless? I don't think it is necessarily.
I think it is like a multi pressable button. Then it works really, really well.
When you think about the fact that consoles have always had so few inputs in comparison to PC, and that technically one edition that's pretty. It doesn't really get in your. It's not really annoying. You don't know it's there unless the game forces you to use it. But even then, I think when the games do use it, it's just one edition that gives you way more input options, and I don't really mind that. Now,
my biggest thing is that it requires a next step for backwards compatibility.
It does. The same as the back touchpad on Vita.
And I think that I've said it before, but I love Nintendo systems, but I hate touchscreen stuff when it comes to games. And one of my favorite original DS games required the touchscreen to play.
Metroid.
That's okay. So 2 of them. Actually, you could use the buttons for that, but
Metroid required you to move the. Well, it was to move the cursor.
No, you could do that without it. You can use the buttons on both sides.
There was something in that game that required you to use touchscreen. And I can't remember what it was.
I mean, it might have required you to touch the touchscreen for parts, but like I thought you were talking about the control scheme, like where you can move with the X, A, B, Y, and then you can use your stylus to look like a mouse.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, that's how I played the game.
I thought that was the only way you could play it.
No, you can remap it to the other buttons on the left. You can have the D-pad move you left, up, right, and down.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So that must be. And see, that was the thing about the DS times. Kingdom Hearts games, both of the ones that were on there, were naturally set up to where you had to use a touchpad to turn the camera, but all you had to do was dig into the menu
and then use
in the settings,
shoulder.
and it would let you use the shoulder button, which I think was a perfectly fine.
The World Ends With You required a lot of it, so that I love that game. So
well, see, do you think that introduces, while we're on the topic of Switch, do you feel like that introduces the same problem of ever getting adequate DS or 3DS emulation on something like a Switch? Because there is a touchscreen, but there's not two screens. So do they just put half of the game here and half of the game on this side of the screen?
It creates a problem, but something that would be cool to see is that they make like a, I don't know if they could even do this, but it would be essentially a DS collection or something, and you could basically... like they would repurpose DS models, or they would just make a very brand new model that had like the 50 most popular DS games in it, like the NES Classic. I think that'd be pretty cool.
I just feel like companies are leaning on those too much when you could easily do something like the retro. What do they call it? It's not retro.
Retrocade?
No. What was the? People were asking for it on Switch forever.
Oh, Virtual Market.
Virtual
Console.
Yeah, Virtual Console. You could do something like Virtual Console for the Switch and have all the NES games and SNES games and 64 games that some of the other systems would let you play. And people always wanted GameCube. And I feel like this is the perfect system to let you do GameCube, no problems. I feel like when you have all of that in your grasp, it seems like one of the only reasons they didn't go toward it is because they realized they also had a great market with the NES Mini and the SNES Mini.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And companies are going to do what companies want to do. Just like...
and they're trying to maximize profits. So, and I understand that. I want these companies to stay around. So even though I think that the PS1 Mini was ill-advised, I know what Sony was trying to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, well, interesting. Okay, let's see. Donna Williams, also a Patreon, says, or patron, what was the first band that really spoke to you?
A Day to Remember.
Linkin Park. If I have to go back to like...
Actually, you know what? I would say Linkin Park,
because you got to think about how young we were when Linkin Park blew up.
Yeah, I would say Linkin Park, too,
So,
honestly.
99, I was 6. And there's just something about how edgy it was at the time, and it was just of our time. It was very different. It was a new genre, really.
Because he said what was the first band, right?
Yeah, what was the first band that really spoke to you?
I'm trying to think of what band spoke to me the best, and that would have been A Day to Remember. But yeah, Linkin Park for sure, Donovan. Good question.
Yeah, great question. I would be more curious how many other people who listen to us was that your first band that spoke to you.
Yeah, let us know. Don't forget, there is a reader mail discussion tab in our Discord where we discuss questions we answer with you guys. So bring them up.
Donovan also asked his second question: what song used to be a happy one that now makes you sad/nostalgic?
I don't know if I have a sad song. I have a nostalgic song.
Well, here's the bigger thing about that: is nostalgia inherently sad?
No,
I don't think so either. I think nostalgia. Well, I
would generally think nostalgia is positive. Because you're thinking back to a better time, which in itself is better, even though you may not be in that better place.
Back in a better time implies that where you're at now isn't as good as that. So that's what I mean. Is I think for a lot of people, nostalgia is tied to an inherent sadness, or at least an inherent,
I guess so,
longing to return to a simpler time.
Maybe I'm just more positive in my mind, but like for me, it's like I look back and I'm like, those were some good times, and I might be sad because they're over, but like I'm more happy they happened.
Yeah,
so that
you get to remember them.
Yeah, any negative feeling. But what song?
What song used to be a happy one? Donovan, I really want to hear your answer on this because I'm assuming that this question came alongside the realization that a song you used to love now hits you in a way that you don't like as much.
Honestly, for me, I would say anything off Grind soundtrack, but most importantly, the Used Poetic Tragedy is like, because like that, for whatever reason, that song is that and Blindside. What is that Blindside song called?
Well, okay, that's going to be which one? Because there's
the one where they're at the skate park.
Oh, Lord.
The one towards the end. But anyways,
what Blindside song is that?
It's one of their more famous songs because of this movie.
It's not
that one right there. It's the
Pitiful.
Yeah,
Pitiful.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say those two songs because Grind is one of those movies that I watched. I probably watched it way more than 100 times by now, and throughout different stages of my like childhood to teenage years, and it's just for whatever reason, like that movie is just. I hear either one of those songs, and I instantly go back to Grind. Or I think of chili cheese stuff.
The nostalgia side, I think, of that one is really interesting. And I think that's probably the bigger crux of it. Because one of the things that I think Donovan and I both share, and if you're in the Discord and saw the music discussion channel recently, you know Donovan and I have known each other since I was born. Our moms were really good friends growing up. So me and Donovan have just always known each other. But what we both have is that we both like to listen to songs that would make most people sad and technically make us sad, but for some reason, whatever it is about the sadness that the song brings on to you also adds like a layer of like I don't know how to describe it. It's like it makes me sad, but it also makes me relieved. It's a very odd feeling that I don't know necessarily how to tell. Like one of my favorite bands is Hotel Books, and if you've never listened to them, are very, they're spoken word. It's very poetry inspired lyricism that trying to use as it's very flow driven. So it does fit the beat and fit the atmosphere, and it ties in. But it's pretty sad stuff, and a lot of people who listen to it that I know of don't like to listen to it because it's too sad. That's one of the most common things that I hear people say, but I love it. And it's like there's something about that depression and that, I don't know how to describe it, I guess, but it gives me like goosebumps on my arm that make me feel weirdly alive. It's like being sad is one of the most integral parts to being alive, because it's like I've said it before, I think it's really hard to understand the heights of happiness without understanding the lows of sadness.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
Perspective thing. But I also completely understand when people say that some things in general are just too sad for them to want to participate. But there's something about that. When I'm sad, I just delve further into sad things, and somehow it makes me feel better. So on the nostalgic side, too, I think that's a more interesting thing, is that there's something that made you happy, but now it makes you nostalgic in a sad way. And I don't think that happens. But I will say the closest thing I can kind of give as an example to this song is a song that... and I think the song is from a band called Bastion.
Bastion?
Yeah, it's a newer band, or really probably a pop group. Yeah, so it's Bastille is the singer. My bad. Now I'm understanding where I'm back at. So the song is from the marshmallow-headed guy, and it's called Happier, and the singer that's on it is Bastille.
Dude, Marshmallow has some good songs.
Okay, but anyway, I've never heard anything else from him. Dude. There's a song that he's come on and Kyrie loves it. And it's Happier. And the lyrics are totally, when you actually are listening to them, it's kind of about like, it seems like it's about a relationship that's going on. And that they're getting to a point where they realize that it's really not better for them to be together. So they're going to let each other go because they want each other to be happy still. And that's a fine song. And I actually do enjoy the song even like that. And it's a poppy song. I like it. I like some poppy songs. Some of them are written very well. They're catchy, they get stuck in your head, and for the better sense. And of course, having a kid helps it. She loves that song. But when Grandpa passed, it's like, you ever have a song where for some reason the lyrics take on an entirely different meaning, despite the fact that it's obvious that's not what they were about? And it's like you're projecting weird meanings onto the lyrics temporarily because of a state of mind that you're in. So... and it all kind of comes together. So the thought process behind it is that we ended up watching the music video. The video is about this little girl. It's Miranda Cosgrove, and it's her. She gets a dog when she's like 3 or 4. Goes through, and the dog grows up with her, and you keep seeing her. And then it goes to Miranda Cosgrove, and she's like in high school, and she's got braces, and kids are making fun of her. But she goes home, and the dog's there to love on her, and she keeps going. So you're seeing her and the dog go through each other. And then the dog is old because she's grown up so much, of course, and the dog has to be put down because it's sick.
Wow,
and
that's sad.
Yeah, and then the end of the video is her growing up, and you see an adult version that's her, and you have there's a locket around her neck that you see that makes it her, And her dad, which got her the puppy, is now the grandpa of her daughter. And the dad comes in with a puppy that looks just like her puppy did and gives it to her daughter. And it's like the cycle repeats. And it's like, even though it made her sad to think about it, it made her happy at the same time. So here music video descriptions with Brett. But where that got me is like, that was already an inherently really sad video because I love dogs and that crap tore me apart. So I guess it started making me lean towards a really sad version of the song. And then when Grandpa passed, it was like one of these weird things where every time I'd listen to it, I was putting weird meaning onto some of the lyrics. So there's a part that's like, and only for a second, I want to see you smile is one of the lyrics. And I know that it's not about this, but it's like one of those things where for me, it's like
resonated.
The lyric changed so much because for me, it was like Grandpa's last 2 weeks, he wasn't himself at all. And he had like almost no emotion. So what it ended up being was like, for me, after he passed, like there was like 2 weeks of every time that song come on, I just start crying. And for some reason, when it hits that part, my mind is like, I remember how much those last 2 weeks, I just wanted to see Grandpa smile because he was always a smart ass. He would make jokes. So, and look, I even get emotional talking about it. It's weird. But that's an example of a song that had no weird feelings toward. But now when it comes on, I do catch like this real weirdly emotional impact and kind of weight on my shoulders. It's odd. So there you go. That's one of them. I think that was our last Facebook question. Thank you, Donovan. Great question. Even if a little... It seemed like it was a weird one to come into, but hey, you know what? You got a weird story out of it.
So Facebook, Twitter, Discord, right? Or is it Facebook, Discord, Facebook, Twitter, Discord?
Twitter.
Yeah, it rolls off the tongue that much better.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay, yep, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay, so first question on Twitter, our good buddy Ryan Jones. He says, what's the last game you got overly hyped for, consuming as much info as you can find about it, daydreaming about what it will be like to play, only to be utterly disappointed when you got it? Mine's Metal Gear Solid 2.
Sweet
High
Jones.
on Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2's media coverage. I quit when I got to Raiden. My bad.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so preface to this. Did you see our whole conversation that kind of led to this question?
No.
So what happened? We were talking about Death Stranding. I shared something on Twitter that was the collector's edition. And what I was talking about is I actually thought that the collector's edition was a cool use of a collector's edition because it would have been a lot easier for them to go with I think we talked about this last episode. It would have been a lot easier for them to go with a traditional statue of just Sam or whoever in the game. And instead they chose to take something that's going to be iconic and memorable from the game.
And made it the piece.
So it's the bridge baby. So I said I applaud them doing something more unique and different with it. And somehow that devolved into the conversation of, it got into the point where there was people saying that don't get too hyped for it because you don't know what it's going to be and that it could bring you down. And we started talking about how Metal Gear has had some ups and downs as a franchise. Not every game has actually been perfect. Some of them have been weak. So it's one of those things. What led to that, though, and then we started talking about times where a lot of the time I understand that I come off from a very middle kind of fence-sitting situation where I have trained myself as much as possible to have my own opinion, but try and understand where people are coming from.
You are the devil when it comes to advocating.
Yeah. But more so that it's more than just playing the devil's advocate. It's also being the person who understands why the person is advocating for their side.
Right.
So it's like, what's the difference in understanding where it comes from? And, we were talking about games, and he was like, well, what was the last time that you bought a game that really just disappointed you? And I have those examples, and I think oftentimes I don't give them enough because I try to be positive about games because I know that 9 times out of 10, these products are the developers behind these games wanted to do something better than what maybe ended up coming out, or maybe it's exactly what they wanted. You never know, but people put a lot of time, energy, and effort into it. And just because it's not for me, it does not mean that it's bad. And even if I do think it's bad, does not mean that it's not good to someone else. One of my biggest examples of that is always how I talk so fondly about The Order, despite so many people viewing a lot of negatives about The Order. But the negatives, I hardly talk about them because the positives outweigh them. So so a couple of examples that I gave him were games that just I was thinking in my mind, I got stoked for this, and then it just didn't end up happening. One of them was Fallout 4.
Right.
Fallout 4 was a game from the get-go. Like, I loved 3, and then I really loved New Vegas. And then we got around to the point where 4 was coming, and I remember thinking, something about this looks off. It still looks old. It looks like it's trying to... I didn't care for the talking protagonist. There's all sorts of things that I was like, this just seems like a weird step for the franchise. And then I got it, and essentially what disappointed me, and this is the thing, I did beat the game, but I have never played a Bethesda game until that moment where when I beat the mainline story, which I also just rushed through, I didn't do a single side quest because I
did the Brotherhood stuff.
Anyway, so I went through that, and I got to the end, and it was like, well, that was the end, and there's side content, but the game has not compelled me with enough reason to want to even explore the side content that I just got to the point where I was like, I immediately turned the game off and have not played it since. And I don't feel like I even ever will want to play it. So that's a great example for me. I mean, that is really one of the games that really let me down. And then I think if you want to talk about a post-launch one, I mean, Anthem has hit me in a weird spot. I really enjoyed the game, and I've played it for 80-plus hours. And I actually liked it a lot more than a Division 2. As much as the Division 2 is a clearly good game, and it launched in better shape with more content, with better feedback, all that stuff. But at its core, I can't help from feeling that I enjoyed Anthem's gameplay a lot more, and I enjoyed Anthem's story a lot more. I can't even tell you the story of the Division 2 because I care that little. I tried, and it's just, I don't like the way it's presented. I don't care for the story it's trying to tell. Something about it is not clicking with me. I don't know if it's what it is, but that's an example for me. What's up, Saul?
Anthem. What you got? Anthem by and large, because I don't even have motivation to play that game now. I don't care if there is content in there that looks fun to play. There's no future to that game that I can see. So I don't want to waste time on it. It's like playing Destiny when I knew Destiny was going to be, or I knew if Destiny was going to die in the next year. It's like there's no point wasting my time. I'd rather put it into a game where there is a future.
I'll tell you this. If you asked me right now if I think you should play Anthem, the answer is no. If you asked me at launch if I think you should play an Anthem,
yes, and
the answer was yes.
And I thought the same thing. That's the trickery that went in behind
even
that.
Even though the game launched in a weird state, I think if you would have, I think even now, I'll still say if you played Anthem in the first 4 weeks of launch, you got the closest point of whether you were going to end up getting a game that you could put enough time and effort and play with other people with and still enjoy yourself. After that first month and a half, player base started falling off, and that's still been an issue. I don't have very many people to play with. So there's a lot of things that come off of that. I'm with you. I understand that. But, I mean, because you played Anthem, and I think this happened to both of us, right, to an extent. But we both took it different ways. I played the beta, and you played the beta.
Yes.
The beta, for me, solidified the fact that I like the game in terms of the core concept.
For me, it gave me hope, but it was rocky. And I was like, they'll have these ironed out by launch.
And I thought so, too.
Nothing was fixed. And it was literally like playing the beta again. And then they came out like a week later, and they're like, hey, we fixed matchmaking. And
they did.
Like, yeah, they did. And it was just like,
but you were already past it.
I was already past it. Yeah. So, but Anthem for me, for sure. Our good buddy and patron William says, do you think hybrid consoles like the Switch are the future, or should we keep the more traditional console approach? Myself, I love the ability to play something like Breath of the Wild during my commute to and from work, but then drop in the Switch dock and continue to play on my TV. Perfect question, William, because I like this question. I will always be a handheld person when it comes to preferences. So I'm all for any console that wants to adapt this Switch formula. Whether that's for the best of everything, I don't know. I would think not, because it's rough optimizing two versions of a game, essentially. And not only that, but then things get tricky with different ports and different games and different developers, because they're having to essentially optimize two versions of the game, one for handheld mode and one for full screen display. But I love handhelds, and I actually love the Switch and the idea of the Switch, and I would be supportive if Sony ever came out with a new handheld that could do the same.
Yeah. I think my answer is that I like the optimism behind the idea of the Switch, but I think that the reality of technology is that something that's going to be able to do what the Switch does will always have to be, because of battery and things like that, and heat, processing and size and everything, will always have to be notably weaker than a console brethren. And I think that by doing that, you actually would push
competition in the handheld market.
Not even that. I'm trying to think of the way to say it. You would actually lose momentum in pushing gaming forward.
Absolutely
in
not.
some sense.
Absolutely not.
Let me explain why. And I think, and you still may just disagree, but what I mean by that is, like, you're going to lose a lot of processing power, which means that actually more unique ideas, which are so seldom these days already, like Death Stranding, I don't know if Death Stranding as a whole could have worked on something that was trying to do what the Switch does, not only from its online connectivity, but from what he wants to do from a storytelling standpoint, which seems to be very much on the brink of...
It would push creativity and innovation.
Well, it would push it in a different direction, and I don't necessarily know that direction's worse. But
I don't either. That's what I mean by
something like No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is something that actually does utilize the power of modern consoles in a way that old consoles couldn't have done, and also uses, internet and online in ways, definitely with the upcoming stuff, in ways that old consoles couldn't have done either necessarily as well, and tying into a server for asynchronous things and how the uploading of stuff works. So I think that some of the few truly innovative ideas that we get, some of them are tied to power being able to move forward and allowing people more ways to have something interesting to do. I think when you add in the element of everything being so underpowered and then having to spend so much time on making sure that things are both optimized for the handheld version and for when it's plugged into a dock, it gets weird to a point where I think a lot of the things that I've loved about a lot of games recently would not have been able to happen. I think that a lot of the cinematic nature of the Order that I love so much, that gave me a really cool, detailed world, would not have been able to happen on a console that was trying to have specs like a Switch. It just wouldn't have worked.
No.
But that also depends on what's important to you in a game. And because I think a lot of people use games specifically for gaming and they use movies to give them their storytelling. So I think that that's why sometimes a game like The Order can come along, and even though it does the storytelling and movie aspects, the cinematic aspects really well, but it doesn't give enough in the game aspect, that what happens is because they don't care about the story and cinematic stuff as much as they want a game part, then that comes off as a bad rub to them. And that's fair. And that's a reasonable, critique of the game. But for somebody like me, it was something that I enjoyed because that's my primary medium of getting stories. So I think what I mean by that is that when you have that element, I don't know that there's any game on the Switch that has come out that has had cinematic elements at all, because it's not to the benefit of it's not the strengths of the hardware. And that's fine. And sometimes you get stuff like where certain games will utilize that, be like, well, we realize this is a strength, so what we're going to do is lean into a very unique art style to compensate for the fact that we can't have a realistic cinematic nature, but instead we can have a really vibrant cartoony nature that is very unique. When you see it, you go, that's that game.
I'm going to be honest with you, there's a flaw in your logic.
Well, I mean,
only Sony gamers care about cinematic experiences.
I don't think that's necessarily true either.
I think that,
but I think Sony caters to them more than anybody.
Most of them are Sony fans, and by that I mean that most people have a Switch, know what they're getting when they buy a Switch. They're not looking for those experiences.
Absolutely. But I guess to answer the question, and go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just to say that the same would be that, like, for on Vita they had Uncharted, which you would say would actually fit the bill for what you're talking about.
Yeah, but it still wasn't as much as it was cool to be on the handheld.
It would fit the bill the closest,
but it wasn't enough.
Right. Yeah. Just like probably Breath of the Wild would probably fit the bill the closest, depending on people. Yeah.
But it still wasn't quite enough.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. And I'm not saying to fully replace the consoles.
Yes.
But I'm saying to supplement them. I think that, and I've said it before, is that the Switch, PS4 gaming PC combo is the best way to experience video games right now.
I agree with that wholly. I thought, and that might be that we're reading the question differently, is that do more consoles go that route, and do we get rid of the traditional consoles?
That's what he's asking. I'm just opening the floor for the discussion on the type of the console.
I don't agree with replacing the traditional console with it, but I agree with always having an option that has that route.
Right. I'm not saying to take all the consoles off the market and then do that. I would say, though, that it'd be interesting if each company had one of these as a side console to supplement. Like Gideon is always talking about having the PS4P, the PlayStation 4 Portable, and in the form of like a Switch, in which you can literally download PlayStation 4 games and play them on the go. And I don't know if his model incorporated a dock. I don't think he ever talked about that.
I think his is very much just on the idea of having a PS4 that's just in your hands.
Yeah, and that would be amazing if companies started releasing, and we talked about that in multiple episodes too, of releasing a mini version, a handheld version of their current console. But it gets really, really tricky. But yeah, to agree with Brett, I don't agree that they should just disappear.
Yeah.
Let's see. Sean Neo says, you find yourself awake in the middle of a zombie outbreak. What is your one choice of a weapon? I don't know. Something sharp laying around.
Thunderlord from Destiny 2.
I think this is realistic. That's why I'm like, I don't really know what the answer would be.
Well, here's the thing. Realistic can't coincide with zombies because zombies aren't real, right? So you have to, there's got to be a level.
The fun part about it though is that, like, just imagine if the one thing is taken true, it's a zombie.
Okay, well, take what Thunderlord is and put it in the real world. I want a Gatling gun. I want to be able to.
Gatling guns can't fire thunder. I mean, lightning.
Okay, that's fine, but I just want to be able to take down a hordes of enemies.
Is there Gatling guns in Days Gone?
If I needed to. No, there's not.
Well, that's lame.
Think about it.
Missed opportunity.
Well, one of the things, this is just an example for Days Gone that I think you will. This is something I thought was cool from a world building aspect. When you're getting enemies and stuff, what happens is, or when you're getting guns and stuff, they're rated based off of what they would have been used for. So it's like a 1 is like a gun that anybody would have had in their house, and it's just like a kind of a normal gun.
Right.
Then you start getting like
self-defense to probably.
Well, then it starts being like, how is it spec'd? And then the highest spec is military spec.
Right.
And it's like, so that's, and a chain gun would really be a military spec weapon, but the world's been down for 2 years, and you're in an isolated area. So how many of those would be around?
Yeah.
So, but.
I know Brett owns a gun, and I own a gun. Our guns. And we're gonna Our guns. That's the weapon I'm gonna grab because that's honestly the most probably logical bet. No Fate asked us 3 more questions. I'm trying to keep it simple because it's No Fate and William again. So I'm trying to alternate it, but it's about to just be a rush of No Fates. So William asked again. Of course, once again, he is a Patreon, so thank you for that. He says, how do you feel about games as a service model? Games that aren't necessarily multiplayer but are tied to online services to operate. I inherently dislike them because of the fear of the game flops, they'll kill the server, and I end up with a $60 coaster. I think it's very rare that happens, but what I will say that is something to take into consideration. I think we actually did a full topic on this last year, didn't we? Yeah, maybe. It was about Division and Rainbow Six Siege. That was one of the first thumbnails I made.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love them. I think that they work well when they work well. And I think that what that means is that when game devs are pushing them out and they are supplementing them properly, they are providing content updates for them properly, they are making nice meta changes inside the game that are good for multiplayer games mainly, to focus on weapon changes and buffs and nerfs and stuff like that, like Apex does, like Overwatch does, like Destiny does. If you have a strong developer behind your side on that, when it comes to these kind of games, you're ace. If you have a bad developer on the back end, BioWare, it's a complete and utter failure. But I agree with you. That's why I do think that it is not to blame games as a service as a business model. It's to blame Sony and everybody else in the world who doesn't offer refunds yet, the way they should.
I think it's to blame people for trying to jump into a market that they see exploding. Right. If I had to say anything, and I understand why they're doing it, again, EA goes, well, this is a market that we don't have a game for yet, and if we can make a great game, hopefully, that will tap us into this market, and then we get some of that market share, and we are part of that. But I think what ends up happening in that situation is sometimes it's more about just trying to break into a market, and it's not making sure that you have the right team behind it. I think that as much as that expose revealed from Kotaku about Anthem and BioWare's development thing, where a lot of it was that there was nobody from EA coming in and telling BioWare that, hey, we're telling you to make this game and publish this game. If you want to make it, that's great. But if you're going to make a game that is a games as a service, you do need to look at your contemporaries and make sure that you're not copying mistakes from them, or you're learning lessons that they learned the hard way and not getting in the same situation. And the problem with Anthem is that it launched as if it were a game that you were meant to play once, like a story-driven game, which is like what I've done. And I have no drive to go back to it as a game as a service. It was fun as a game. As a game as a service, it very much rests on the laurels of, is it going to have enough of a player base for it to survive? And there's a high chance that my Anthem digital purchase will be useless if the game doesn't pick back up because they're going to kill the servers. Yeah. So reasonable fear.
Yeah, I understand. Sean says, other than just pure awesomeness, what are your thoughts on the announced Twisted Metal TV series? I'm scared for it because typically these kind of TV series don't work out too well, because they end up going Death Wish, and I was not a fan of Death Wish. Death Wish is a made by George Romero, I'm pretty sure. Oh wait, hold on, no, I got that wrong. I know Corey's just sitting there like, what is he doing?
Is it a movie?
Yeah, or was
it a series?
I might know it's a movie, but I think I actually have the name wrong.
What's it about?
Car racing. Death Race?
Oh yeah, that's one. It's not.
Is it Eli Roth that does those?
Here, look. You talking about this one right here? This is the one that he shared on the other episode with Jason Statham in it.
I don't think that's it though. This thing is sitting at a 6.4 on IMDb. Who made this movie? That's how I'm gonna know if I know this is what I'm talking about or not. Paul S. Anderson, no. Jeremy Bolt.
But so essentially, it's a car combat movie.
Maybe it was Death
or
Race.
Is it a? Or
yeah, it's
is
a car combat movie. But like typically, they just end up being nitty gritty. And of course, you got to focus on characters a lot for character development. And
well, that's what I'm curious about. I don't think that Death Race really did, and I don't think that it's got as interesting.
How bad it is. The same way that Mario focused on a story that was bad because it only translates well into a game. And I think that's what the problem is with this. That they actually have cool characters though to focus on, which is the saving grace.
That's what I was going to say. I think part of the reason is that a movie like Death Race is grounded in entirely reality, whereas a lot of the things in Twisted Metal are focused on, technically they could be real, but a lot of them are very characterized. And I mean that as in like, they're written as characters. Each person's going to be very different from the other. And they're not only going to be different from personality traits, they're going to have a shtick about them. And that's very much the idea of a character. And more like, you know, when you bring in character actors to play them. So it's like, well, this guy's going to be an insane kind of clown dude.
Yeah, they are like, by all definitions, the most vivid example of a character.
Yeah, I agree.
They are very characteristic in terms of who they are, what they represent.
Like, what if we made a character and made sure all of them are twisted in some way?
Yes, and it's actually really cool. So that's the saving grace for me. Please just don't let CW produce that show.
Well, no, I mean, PlayStation handles production.
No, I know. So. Just, please don't let people who work at CW produce that show. I don't know what it is, dude, but the CW shows like Supernatural and Flash and all those shows, like the special effects in those shows are so bad. I can't handle Twisted Metal with bad special effects.
I don't want Twisted Metal to come off campy.
Twisted Metal, huh?
I don't want it to come off campy.
Well, that's the one thing I'm worried about because I think it will, regardless of what you do. But,
I think best plans are like I talked about in the last episode, where they roll through and they let it be each episode, and they don't let it go on too long. Every episode is one character that you follow them for an entire story, and it's essentially independent episodes, like we talked about with Black Mirror.
Oh well, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
where they're all individual stories that they could be in the same universe, and we don't really clarify it, but the through line is always going to be that Calypso's involved, and you just let every episode go that route, and I think that would be fun.
Said Twisted Metal was like, we actually made that comparison, and for some reason I got God of War in my head somehow.
Yeah.
But our last question for Sean One Neo, which actually is a really good question, and it ties back into an older episode we did as well about controlling hype. He did not say that. Ooh, sorry about that. Spit went down the wrong pipe. He said, due to the success of The Last of Us raising the bar so high, even if The Last of Us 2 is a great game, do you think the hype surrounding it is too much, that it's almost impossible to hold up expectations? Yes. And he even says, to go on as an example, Uncharted 2 to 3. I fully believe that is the case, which is why we've said it before. It's very important to control your hype, because I can almost guarantee you, for me, this game is not going to be better than 1. 1 had something special to it. It has nostalgia tied to it for me. It has characters that I loved and developing with them in 1. Now that they're already developed, it's going to be harder to get those kind of capture essences in this game for me.
And some of the mystery is gone, too.
And some of the mystery is gone. But 1 truly is a masterpiece of a game in terms of looking back at a character created for a video game and feeling emotion towards that character because you played with or traveled with that character and grew with them. Now, the only thing that I think that would surpass it for me is that the ending has to be perfect. And I since I've grown with this series so much, the ending has to feel like it makes sense, and it has to feel perfect to that universe. And so I already know I'm not getting super hyped up for this game. I am really excited, but I am. Well, Death Stranding. I was like, what was the other game coming out this year in November? Well, it went to Pokemon.
Hyped game?
Well, no, it went to Pokemon in my head. No, I'm hyped for Pokemon. I'm hyped for Astral Chain. But
I'm talking about on PlayStation.
On PlayStation, yeah. But yeah, I do think that there's potential for it to fail and fall flat. Anything can go wrong. Do I think it'll happen? No. But I don't think that I will like it as much as I like the first game.
I agree. My stance on it is very much in the round of I think it's possible for the game to be overhyped. I don't necessarily, and I think it's possible for the game to genuinely not be as good as the first game. But I think Saul would agree. I think that something about the first game, as much as I had the name recognition for Naughty Dog and loved the Uncharted games, I don't necessarily know that Saul had that because he didn't play the Uncharted games until later. But Saul, would you think it's safe to say that the first game, even though you were like, yeah, it's going to be good, it's going to be good, do you feel like it caught you off guard a little bit with how good it truly was to you? I was caught off guard with how much it actually resonated.
Mainly because of how late I played this series, the word of mouth was already there.
Sure, but I played it at launch, so that's fair.
Well, I will say, though, that a good apt comparison to what you are trying to make is the beginning of 2. I've heard that the beginning of 2 is a masterpiece. And I wasn't even, and I've heard it hyped up, and I was like, okay, I know this is going to be good. I wasn't prepared for how good it really was.
Oh, Uncharted 2?
Yeah, the train sequence and everything. Sucks the game kind of falls flat towards the end, but yeah, it worked out really, really well. And that's the thing, right, is that I've learned more and more that we've done this podcast, and I think you can go back even and on that hype about Final Fantasy VII and Kingdom Hearts, is that it's what I'm doing right now with Final Fantasy VII. I'm controlling that hype, and I'm making myself make realistic judgments about the game that I actually feel is going to happen, instead of off-putting it as it's Final Fantasy VII, it's going to be good no matter what. I'm actually looking at it, and that's one of the reasons I took the stance on both episodes shouldn't be $60. It's just Final Fantasy VII. And that's kind of like in my head, is like, it's not a defense mechanism, but I am being realistic with myself, because in my head, games like Anthem and technically D2 at launch, but I really, really liked D2 at launch.
Destiny 2.
Yeah,
just to be clarified. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the month and a half or 2 months after the game came out, it kind of fell flat for me, and I was kind of let down by that. But there's a lot of games this generation that have really, 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 really let me down. And I decided to stop kind of caring about everything that goes into the game when it comes to media. Like, I'm just going to stop worrying about it. The one time I'm going to let my hype get over-controlled, I'm just going to say it right now, fuck Bethesda, but boy, I'm going to be excited during Bethesda's E3. Like, I know I won't be able to control that. Like, Bethesda, you're a liar. Todd Howard is not to be trusted. And I'm really, really, really kind of pissed off with what happened with Fallout 76. But when they start showing Elder Scrolls, that's just going to go away. And I can't help it.
I'm still curious if they're going to.
I guarantee you they are. They're going to show, I can tell you right now, they're going to show Elder Scrolls, Starfield, Doom 2. And then maybe an update on, like, an update of some kind of Fallout 76.
We'll see.
And then Todd Howard's going to throw jokes about bugs in the game.
Yeah.
Bet me $1,000, somebody. I'll take you up on it.
I agree, though. And the one question I have is kind of a thing, because I did notice that you're trying so hard to not get hyped up about Final Fantasy VII.
I'm not trying hard at all. I'm just being realistic. I'm not mentally thinking in my head
constantly. I know, but you've already relegated yourself to position, it seems like, to where it's like you're going to go on the attack quicker than you're going to just accept it. And that's fine. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
It's not an attack. It's just stopping analyzing something before I just make assumptions about how good it's going to be.
But do you not feel like that automatically puts you in a sense, and I'm not saying, and I do this too to some extent, but do you not feel like on both of our accounts that by doing that sometimes you actually hamper your ability to genuinely end up loving something because you were too concerned about not getting overhyped?
No, because here's the thing, is that if you control your expectations, you may go into a movie like Avengers.
This is just playing devil's advocate, by the way. Right. I think I know where you're going, and I agree for the most part.
It's like the Avengers. I've said before, like, I'm not the biggest Marvel cinematic fan. There's really good ones in there, like Infinity War and some of the Iron Man movies and Thor and Guardians. But I'm not one of those people that are going to go see it on opening night at midnight. I'm not going to be one of those people who are going to watch analysis videos every single day about trailers and stuff. But I enjoy them. I genuinely, they always come out on my birthday week. And it's been a thing for like the past, whatever long, 10 years, I guess, that there's a Marvel movie in the birthday month of mine. And I'm going to go see that Marvel movie. But I went into Endgame, and I was super excited for Endgame, not so much because of what happened in it, but because of just the conclusion of how long it's been that I've been watching these movies.
Sure.
And I went in, and
the same thing that Kingdom Hearts was trying to capture in on at the beginning of the year.
And that's even a better example. But yeah, long story short, with Kingdom Hearts and Endgame, was that I went in and I'm like, there's multiple ways that they can end this, and I will love it. There's multiple ways they can end this, and I'll hate it. I'm not going to worry about that at all. I'm going to go in and I'm going to have a good time. And of course, I try not to get out of expectations when it comes to stuff, depending on what it is. Kingdom Hearts 3, I knew I knew the way they were going to end that game was they were going to wrap up arcs all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that for a fact. In the back,
it's Kingdom Hearts pacing. That's the way they've always done it.
It's how those games have always done. And I knew like within the last 4 hours, I guess, of the game, depending on how long it takes you to beat the last section, which took me about 4 hours. I knew that was going to happen, that they're going to wrap up everybody's story arc, and I was perfectly okay with it. Like some people would know that was a pacing problem. I was perfectly okay with it. It's just what
I'll even say it is
to.
a pacing problem, but it's a problem that the series has had forever. Besides the first game, the first game is the only game that's actually well paced throughout the whole thing, in my opinion, and that's because
Dream Drop Distance is the best paced game.
Dream Drop?
Yeah.
I would argue that Dream Drop has the exact same problem that 3 has, where every bit of relevant information for the plot happens in the last bit.
Well, no, and I'm not saying that one thing will make it the best pacing, but the way they do the character changes and stuff help with the pacing.
I mean, no more. I thought the game was fun. A lot of people hated it, and I thought across the board it was a pretty good game. But I think Kingdom Hearts 1's pacing, and we're losing the forest for trees a little bit, but Kingdom Hearts 1's pacing is just not held back by existing games or even the need for future games. It was a game that was entirely made on the fact of this could be the only game. This game could fail, so we want the story to be as good as possible within its own existence, and then if we decide to expand on it, we can.
Which is what without saying anything much more, there's an ending cutscene of it that's hidden. I think I had to look it up on YouTube because I didn't care to go get everything for it. And it
for Kingdom Hearts 3?
Yeah. For
3.
Yes.
I gotcha.
For 3 and then the final cutscene that happened after everything was said and done. Those two things blew my expectations out of the water with that, and it got me really hyped up. My last impressions of something are my most important. First impressions don't matter when it comes to games at all.
It's the feeling that you get once you've rolled.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that's what makes a game important to me, because that's part of what makes a game important to me, because the game can start off and have a bad frame rate, but when you think of it like Demon Souls, you're like, yeah, this is rough. But when you second you beat that boss, and same thing with Bloodborne, frame pacing problems out the butt. Second you beat that final boss, it was good. And
to tie back into the question about The Last of Us, I think that's part of it too, is that the ending for The Last of Us was kind of contentious, but it felt perfect.
People hated it. I loved it. I thought that it worked on a level that made
even when people hated
sense.
It was like, it wasn't that they hated it as much as it was like they didn't agree. It was like they'd agree or disagree with it. And it's like,
I think it was either you love it or hate it, because there's only two sides to the ending, right?
Yeah, but I just think it was, you hate it if you disagree with what he did, and you love it if you're like, I understand why he did it.
Yeah.
I'm with you, but I think for the part, I think that was to the game's strength, right? Because even if you didn't care about the rest of the game for whatever reason, I think at that point you're like, whoa, what? Endings are important. I do think that you're right. The way that something carries with you is going to last way more based off of its final impression than its first.
And speaking of Last of Us 2, I better see a Joel reveal real soon, because I'm getting kind of anxious. And I've said it before that if Joel's dead at the beginning of this game, I'm going to lose all hope, because I grew with Ellie just as much as I grew with Joel, and that's a duo right there for me.
I agree with you in the largest sense that early on, they kept saying that the sequel, if they were going to do one, had a high chance of being set in the same universe, but it being completely new characters.
Which is what I had my expectations set for.
And now that if you're going to put Ellie in, I feel like you've got to put Joel in too. And now here's the thing: even if that means that somewhere in this game he dies,
that's fine. Not in the first hour.
But he needs to be in the game,
and it needs to be a death that is honorable. It
needs to be a death that is earned.
That too.
That's when you get there,
it has to be important. There needs to be importance behind it.
Right.
Don't just kill them off because you want to kill them off.
Yeah.
Back over to Discord for the last section. We have started off with Quickfire Questions. I think we have 2 Quickfire Questions. No, well, we do have 2 sections. They're just not back to back like I thought.
Okay.
And this is from our good patron Kiki. He says, classical art or modern art? Modern. This is Quickfire. You gotta be fast. Beer or wine?
Neither.
Beer. I don't know where that came from. Wine. Camping or binge watching shows at home?
binge watching shows
at home.
Shows a lot about us.
Working alone or working in a team?
Alone.
I
think I'm more productive alone. So alone.
Dine in or delivery?
Oh, dine in.
Delivery. Sweater or hoodie? Hoodie.
The only reason I need to know is, what does sweater mean? Because it's
zipper jacket.
Okay, that's what I'm making sure.
Button jacket, zipper jacket.
Zipper jacket. So I call them hoodies. That's the only reason that I have to stop on this question for a second. Okay. Zip up hoodies is what I go with. So I'm going to call that sweater.
The only thing I hate about hoodies, because they're much more comfier than those, but I can't do my hair because then I'm having to wear a hoodie. Then I have to do my hair and it's hot.
Mm-hmm.
Comic book or comic strips? Cotton strips. Comic book or comic strips? Books.
Book.
Motorcycle or bicycle?
Motorcycle.
Bicycle. Books or ebook?
Ebook.
Ebook. When sleeping, fan or no fan? Fan required. Box fan required.
Either. It really just comes down to I need some form of noise. So if not a fan, music. I'm fine with that.
Ninjas or pirates?
Ninjas.
TV shows or movies?
TV shows. Long-form TV shows specifically.
Text or phone call?
Text.
Phone call.
Phone call, because you can get done.
Yeah.
You can
phone
get
call. I need to know something. I need you to pick up the phone right then and there.
Yeah, I agree.
Day or night?
Night.
Love it or love it money?
Love or money, I think.
Love or money. Love it money? Love.
Hey, love.
Yeah.
Love it money. That does the okay.
Yeah. Cheesecake or fruit pie?
Cheesecake. Easy.
Paper or plastic? Both kill the environment, so plastic.
This makes me think of the Little Rascal scene where he comes up and they're trying to rebuild their base. And
paper or plastic? Doctor Who or Walking... Oh, wait, yeah, you need to answer.
Paper?
Doctor Who or Walking Dead? No. Walking Dead.
Neither.
Up to season 3. Then after, they're both bad. Google or Bing?
Google. Easy.
Google? Who uses Bing?
The guy who was doing my insurance quote for me today was like, let me go over to Bing. And I literally wanted to be like, what kind of monster uses Bing?
You don't use that insurance agent. Witchers or wizards? Wizards.
Cool
name. Piercings or tattoos? Tattoos,
I guess. Well, piercings aren't as permanent. Piercings.
Sandals or sneakers?
Sneakers.
Yeah. I like wearing flip-flops in the summertime, though. Bagels or toast? Bagels. Much more substance to that. You could do more
toast unless you're throwing me a blueberry bagel.
Sweet or salty?
Salty.
Sweet
and salty is the best.
Yeah, I was going to say that's sweet and sour chicken. Facebook or Twitter? Twitter, obviously, because I don't have a Facebook.
Twitter.
Steak or chicken?
Steak.
Now, this dude did some research in our hometown for this
He just
last
hears
question.
us talking about it all the time.
30 burger or some burger? 30 burger.
We've never talked about some burger. Kiki, you spying on us?
Yeah.
Kiki plans to visit, so I'm sure he's looking at places.
He literally...
30 burger.
Yeah.
Easily.
Some burger, they alienated their customer base when they made a joke about people who put eggs on their burgers, and they're like, we have real burgers here. And it's like,
yeah, we're just a normal, good old fashioned burger.
You're a burger joint.
Yep.
Limited
edition console or regular console is the last one from him. Limited edition.
Huh?
The last question was limited edition console or regular console.
That's not the last question.
It was the last quickfire that you skipped.
That's not quickfire. It's on a whole different day.
No, it's not.
I thought, limited edition or regular console. Regular.
Limited.
Have it black and blends up my whole setup.
There's an argument for that, but limited just because it's cooler.
Yeah. Do you guys think the PS5 will be the last physical disc for Sony? Nope. Absolutely not.
The last console with physical disc? I don't think so. I think Sony realizes that because of how global they are and how much systems they sell in other places that are not caught up with us on the internet side, that they will always make sure that discs are there, so that way they don't have to make multiple SKUs. One of the things that I think Microsoft's making a mistake with the Xbox One all digital, and I realize that they're willing to take the hit so that they can set themselves up for a future where when they say we're coming out with a new Xbox that doesn't have disc at all, that people are prepared for it. I think that separating your SKUs means that your production costs are going to change around in some ways.
It's a smart move, but only have one other SKU than that. Like, don't have an Xbox One S, don't have an Xbox One X, don't have an Xbox One
And
SAD.
it gets more weird, right? Because now I got 500 gig Xbox One S, 1 terabyte Xbox One X.
It made everything convoluted, even though I applaud them for having the courage to do that, because that's kind of a dumb decision.
They are setting up for the future.
Yeah,
I just think it's a weird move right now.
Our good buddy El Chabib comes in through the Discord instead of Twitter. He says, I am intrigued by Death Stranding, and the trailer made me look forward to the title even more. What other games had you intrigued this way in the past? Future games, perhaps, as well? I don't think any game.
I have one, and it's just because of the same situation.
Oh.
And it ended up being because it was vaporware in the long run.
PT?
No. PT actually is one of them,
PT is
but
mine.
it's not the game that first came to mind. Final Fantasy 13 Versus. It was something that we just kept knowing so little about, and then we kept seeing it, and then 15 comes out, and it's nothing because it wasn't the same director and it was remade. But I had just the most... Every bit of what they showed about 13 Versus intrigued the hell out of me. It's everything I love about
Everything
Tetsuya Nomura does. It's putting it in another series that I've loved and doing it in a way that's going to be, for the first time in that series, was going to be full real-time combat and taking the series in a far more adult orientation in terms of, well, I'm not going to say adult orientation. That's not fair. A far more dark aesthetic than I feel like they haven't hit realistically since 7. 7's aesthetic is amazing because it's dark and brooding and like...
Yeah, and there's actually a question. Well...
Saul violated the rules. You're not supposed to type anything but questions in there. I'm kidding. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. That is a good question, though. It should be. I'm going to go with PT for mine, too. Because PT
PT's
was
a great
the one I wanted to have the most, and it intrigued me the most because we never saw anything else of it.
Deep Down is another one because it was just like, what
Deep
the hell
coming
is
out
this
this
game?
year, isn't it?
Nope. We still have
Next
nothing.
Year? Nothing?
It might. They renewed the whatever trademark for it, so I assume that there's a chance that we'll get to see it again. World End was always a big person about that. I'm curious too, man. Wild. There's a lot of games. I'm just gonna stop.
Yeah, there's a PT though is my biggest one for sure.
Yeah.
Josh Shoop asked a question that is actually going to be next week's topic because we liked it so much. But so you guys can get a sneak peek for those who watch Reader Mail or hear it. He says, "Who do you think subjectively is the best mind in video games development today and or all time?" And then he says, "Who do you objectively think?" So
probably going to be next week's episode since E3 is coming, and it'll kind of just be a break for us in the middle of all the E3 news dump. That way you're not getting a bunch of weird stuff. And we're not going to have a lot of news over the weekend because people are holding news for E3.
I just said that.
My bad.
I was like, this is going to be the sneak peek for next week's episode. But yeah. Brett's nails hit the nails on the money. The money on the nails.
The money on the nails.
The head on the nails. Our good buddy and patron Atlas Unchained, who says, with a June PlayStation sale, I'm looking to finally get a PSVR. What games do you think are good starting points?
Yeah, boy.
Take it away, Brett, because I don't have a PSVR. But
I
might get one soon.
Depending on if you have or haven't yet, if you've played Resident Evil 7, that's one of my earliest examples. Even if you have played it, I guarantee you it does not feel the same at all in VR. Do it. It will blow your mind. It is so... It'll make you sweat in stress at certain points. It's just because it's very physically taxing on you. Great game.
I played it here with Brett. That game is amazing.
It's terrifying in VR. It's way different. I normally am not scared in video games, very seldom, but that because you're so in it, the littlest things keep you so tense and like on the edge of your seat because the 3D audio, you'll hear like a cabinet creak behind you, and it's just like...
I know Sean would also recommend Beat Saber, which is the one game I want to get VR for other than Resident Evil 7. So.
Other games, if you like shooter games and you like realistic ones, one of the ones I constantly go to because I think it is a very cool use of it, make sure you get it with the PS aim gun though, would be if you like the Rainbow Six realistic style shooting, you get what is it called? Firewall Zero.
Don't even have the game. I knew it. 0 Hour. No, it's not. No.
It's not 0 Hour.
That's a Destiny 2 thing.
It's 0 Hour. Yeah, Firewall 0 Hour. Look, I'm over here.
Destiny stole from Firewall.
Who knows?
Wasn't that called 0 Hour?
I don't know. But look, that's another one. If you like that, if you still want to see what a shooter's like on it, and also a good use of the PSVR aim gun, I think that a more traditional shooter that's linear driven is Farpoint, though it's got a lot of cool gesture stuff. So there's a thing where you can take the gun, and when you want to change weapons, you quickly put it behind your back like you're grabbing a different gun. I actually love that. It feels so immersive. When you go to a new area and you find a new gun, you see it laying on a crate, and you go and you set your gun like you're reaching out to grab it, and it'll just enter your hands.
What was the other
super cool
space-based PSVR game? Adrift.
Oh, Adrift never ended up being a VR on PlayStation, sadly. Oh, it looked amazing,
looks really good,
and I bought it for that. And I have not even played it because it never ended up getting a VR update for PSVR, sadly. Moss is another one if you like the platformer idea. And then lastly, if you have any kids around or even if you just like kind of goofy games, I do think that there's a pretty big argument, definitely if you catch them on sale for Accounting Plus. It's a big joke
Job
game,
Simulator.
If you like that. And then Job Simulator.
Job Simulator, I played at Brett's house too. It's just fun. It's like
stupid.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
It is. It's a really good. It's a really, really good example of how that VR could be used.
Mm-hmm.
We have a quickfire question segment coming from Donovan. He says, "How much space do you have on your systems?"
Storage space, yeah.
Storage space. I have 1 terabyte on my PS4 Pro, 1 terabyte on my computer. Technically, 1 terabyte plus 256 gigs or 120 gigs for my SSD.
Whatever
that is.
Mine's gonna be a little bit of a mixture because I have the PS4, my model of Pro, because it was a special edition, has 2 terabytes. So I have 2 terabytes in my PlayStation and then 2 terabytes of an external hard drive that's connected to my PlayStation. My computer has got 2 terabytes as well.
Yeah. I'm about to buy an SSD for my PlayStation as well.
And then I've also got a terabyte in my PS3. Both my PS3s. But
ooh. We have 2 questions that kind of go hand in hand about Final Fantasy VII. Good old buddy Kiki once again says,
do you just skipping the rest of the quickfires?
Oh yeah, what am I doing?
I don't know. Top 5 anime. That's not really a quickfire though.
That's not really a quickfire. Gundam Seed, Death Note. I'm gonna try to do it as a quickfire. Yu-Gi-Oh.
That's hard.
Crap.
Full Metal Alchemist anywhere up there?
Berserk, I guess, is a manga, but Full Metal Alchemist. Well, yeah, I never read Full Metal Alchemist, or no,
well, he
I
says
never
anime.
watched Full Metal Alchemist. Full Metal Alchemist. I never watched Full Metal Alchemist.
Neither the original or Brotherhood.
Nope.
Because you read the manga.
I read all of it. It's like Berserk. I've never watched Berserk.
You
but
essentially
I've read
watched Brotherhood.
Yeah.
But through still images.
better ways.
Okay, I agree
my
with
story
that.
was better than yours.
Yu Yu Hakusho.
Oh no!
Well,
I want to take
this
off
is
Gundam
hard.
Seed. I want to take off Gundam Seed and put Yu Yu Hakusho.
Okay, Yu Yu Hakusho. This is really hard.
Death Note.
Inuyasha.
Nope.
I look for all
Inuyasha's good, but
for the
not-
few moments it's got downs. It's amazing. Trigun. Oh boy, this is hard with 5.
Rurouni Kenshin. How did I forget?
Rurouni Kenshin is awesome. So you know what? I'm gonna throw away Inuyasha and put Rurouni Kenshin.
Yeah, you better.
That's good. Yeah.
Inuyasha had decent movies.
Yu Yu Hakusho. Actually, I thought the show was better than the movies, but
I like the movies better.
the movies were good. But
Was it the Silver Castle movie?
yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's not called the Silver Castle, is it? It's
Castle Beyond the Looking Glass.
Yes,
Yeah, that was a good movie.
way out there name. Okay, anyway, Yu Yu Hakusho, Rurouni Kenshin, and by extension Samurai X, which is amazing.
Samurai X was the
seen
movie
it.
of
Yes,
Rurouni Kenshin. Yeah,
it was a prequel movie.
right.
That
It
set up
showed
Rurouni Kenshin.
It showed you how he got
where he was.
well, no, his name, the Bakensai.
Oh, yeah.
Bakensai.
No, it's so close to that.
Hitokiri Bakensai or Batosai. Hitokiri Batosai.
Yeah. All right, so those two, you made me lose my train of thought.
Hitokiri Batosai.
Oh, Trigun. Yeah, Trigun's amazing.
Batosai, yeah.
One of the if you watch anime at all and you haven't watched Trigun, or even if you don't, one of the greatest things about Trigun is it is not afraid to be a short run show that does exactly what it needs to do.
Take out Death Note and
Tell
Trigun
a
for
good
me.
story. Really?
Yeah.
I think Death Note is a great one, but the problem with Death Note is that it loses
I'm going
everything.
off nostalgia too.
That's true. Death Note is amazing all the way up until
The last arc.
Yeah. And
Then
it's
it
a
becomes
short
big
arc.
poople bags until the last episode.
Yeah, the last episode's awesome.
The
I'll
last
give it
episode's
that.
amazing.
But
the whole entire arc with Nier and Mikael.
Okay, Neon Genesis Evangelion is one of mine.
Still need to watch that.
And then I'll say Full Metal Alchemist, and I know I'm going to be one of those weird people here.
No, you are. No, we're not even having this
It is
conversation.
nostalgia driven to an extent, but original Full Metal Alchemist. Actually, I'd say
Longest
it's nostalgia
period
driven
of time you were depressed and why? Now, because of what Brett just said.
Now because of Grandpa. Before that, I did have like a weird run, and you know when you have that first love of your life, and then y'all break up, and it's just like the end of the world's over. And
I never had
the
that.
time between 8th and 9th grade. I went from being with Lakin in 8th grade, and then her mom made her break up with me during that summer because I was a gothic kid.
Man,
and
we almost had
privileged.
two exactly relationships in the exact same way because of parents.
And I was a metalhead is what was more funny about it. But so like my hem jacket made me, and that was one of the only things I had that wasn't Slipknot. But either way, I was
Big change there.
not privileged enough. But there was that, and then I did not have another girlfriend on purpose because I was like, you know, like young, dumb, where you're like, no, I've had love and I don't want anymore. I didn't have a girlfriend for like another 2.5 to 3 years almost. And shortly after that, there was one little 2-week girlfriend before I met Hannah. And then Hannah was there we go.
Oh, I guess mine would be when my mom died. I guess it's the only thing I can think of in my mind, like for the reason why. Because most of the time it's just like depressed for like no motivation. I don't feel like no motivation. I don't feel like doing anything, but I don't really know why. Probably my job. What was your first cell phone? I don't know the name of it.
Me
Do
either.
you know what it was? Because Seth used it after I did. It was that red flip phone.
The red flip phone.
Yeah, I don't even remember what brand it was.
Oh, I do know what phone you're talking about just from visuals alone. I don't know anything else about that phone after that.
Yeah, it was a red flip phone.
Didn't both you and
Seth get the Sony Ericssons?
Yes.
Yeah, those were the best phones I think I've ever had.
That phone was so cool, but it was a piece of
Motorola.
crap.
Yeah, other than the Motorola Razr, because the keys on the Sony Ericsson cracked.
Yep.
Every time down the middle.
Yep.
But yeah, so I don't know what the brand of mine was. What was yours?
My first phone, and I know the brand, but I don't know what you call it past that, was a Virgin Mobile phone, and it was the cheapest.
Was it the slider?
No, it was a flip phone. It was like this thick. It did not have a camera. I barely had signal, and this was when I was in like the 8th grade. I got a cell phone way later than everyone else, and even then, I did not have
later.
Hold on, even then, I did not have normal things. I had like 20 texts a month and very little call time. It was essentially a phone so that if I went out somewhere, I had it. I did not have a phone in the normal capacity until end of my 9th grade year.
I found out we didn't have unlimited text when our phone bill was $600.
That's part of being a parent. That's just so fun.
Dirt bike or 4-wheeler? I'm gonna go with the 4-wheeler because I've never been on a dirt bike.
Dirt bikes are more fun, honestly, but they're way more dangerous. If you want to have a similar amount of fun, but not get hurt so badly, 4-wheeler.
Or what?
4-wheeler. 3-wheeler? Oh my lord! 3-wheelers can go crazy. And you can hurt yourself.
3-wheelers are really
badly.
dangerous. Yeah, I wouldn't get on a 3-wheeler. But back to the Oathkeeper Kiki. He says, "Do you guys feel like the remake should be M-rated due to all the things that happened through the story that we're not able to really show in all of its glory of PS1 graphics?"
So this came from a Night Sky Prince video.
I don't think it should. There's not really much. Like, there are T-rated games that get away with things that this game could, right?
Not exactly, but well, okay. Could is subjective.
I'm really trying to be around the bush here for people who haven't beaten the game.
Me too.
But there are certain.
Well, this is what I'll say though. He says throughout the story there are events that happen that they were not able to really show in all their glory with PS1 graphics.
Well,
that's actually the biggest one.
Deaths.
Partially, what it really comes down to for me, and this is gonna, and this might be an exclusive case.
The end with the I guess.
Partially, yes.
I was trying to think of the what is it called?
Don't say too much.
I'm not trying to say too much. I was gonna say modes.
Okay.
Or forms.
Yeah, but even then, this is really what I'm saying. I part of the reason I actually think it needs to be an M-rated title, and I could be completely in the minority here, is that, and actually bigger question: the most recent God of War, was it teen or was it mature?
It was M, wasn't it?
I'm pretty sure. All the God of War games have always been mature as far as I know, but this one, I could see an argument as to why they might try and go away with it being teen to provide to a bigger market. Make sure you put 2019 in there.
It is. It's M.
Okay. I thought so.
So, yeah, I mean.
What this ties into, though, is very specifically, I think of all the Final Fantasy games, that the tone that they use is the darkest in Final Fantasy VII, and I think if you're going to translate that into a modern use, very similar. I would really hope that if they were going to do a modern version of Final Fantasy VI, as it's known here in the West, with the steampunk stuff, it'd be so cool to see that be done.
That would not be M-rated, though.
In an M-rated thing.
That wouldn't be.
For me, I think it's that if you want to do it, part of what I love about 7's aesthetic is how gritty and dark it is. And I think tying into that,
it is gritty and dark.
Part of it that I want to see is it be realistic. So when people die, I want there to be real blood. I want there to be not.
I don't think Final Fantasy is serious for that, though.
No, I don't necessarily mean Devil May Cry levels of over the top.
No, I know,
blood.
but just blood in general.
Yes.
And I think there will be blood, but then again, blood is a T rating attribute. Like, it doesn't, unless there's just loads and loads and loads of blood, which. Maybe there would be.
Well, other things, right? You have to talk about like alcoholic references, sexual references. And
that's all T-rated things too, though.
They can be, but there's always that threshold of where if you do too much, it breaks over, and that's where.
Well, they already said Sid's not smoking.
Trying to gauge,
which is weird.
Trying to gauge enough about that. Okay, it's like a perfect example. Metal Gear Solid 4 was M-rated, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Metal Gear Solid 4, in my opinion...
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. Think about it.
There wasn't much about that game that really, in my mind, was too much. But the rating board, when you think about it, I feel like this is a game that if they go the stylistic route there, I still think could have been a teen game if I were rating it myself and I'd let my teenager play it. I'd go for it. I think when you're looking at the way that they actually end up rating mature games, I think the game will end up with an M.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree with it. I would just think, like... Maybe it's just being an edgelord that I don't see like there's a lot of stuff that happens in that game that's out of the ordinary. But depending, there are 3 scenes in particular in 7 that happen that I would like to see full 100% full context and clarity for. And one of those scenes does probably maybe can attribute to an M rating. But Kiki, let us know, because I'm interested if you haven't already. If you have, just tag me in it again so I can see it, because I didn't see it the first time. But El Chabib says, and speaking of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, how do you guys think they will handle the open world concept of the game? Will they section off worlds and part them into different episodes, or will they open the world more and become each subsequent episode? I think that's what'll happen. I think that the way the game will work is that there's going to be a divide at a certain scene. It's the scene that I was talking about. I will want to see taken context and frame rated. There's a certain scene, but there's a lot of open world stuff up to that. There's a lot of game there,
and that's why I tend to lean on the side that I think this is what will happen.
We messed up.
Oops. Your boy didn't pull it down. I think.
Play on my laptop too.
You can pull it from the sides a lot easier.
You're right. We're almost done with this episode.
Yeah, you went a little too far. You should be able to let go. I tightened the spring, so it shouldn't be a problem.
But for context, you guys watch the newest episode of Dickish at Best that comes out this coming Friday, so you guys can see Blaze almost shit himself.
That's true. That's I tightened the spring probably too much, is why that was so violent sounding.
Dude, I'm telling you, Blaze was like, he did like the biggest jump. I think we all did. Maybe just because Blaze was in my frame.
I knew what it was, so I flinched, but that was about it. Blaze was very much like
the world is ending.
Somebody just came around the corner with a gat.
No, let's not butcher El Chabib's question.
Okay, so El Chabib, going back to what you're talking about, though, I think that one of the things for me is, like Saul said, there's so much, and this does partially depend on whether they make it a 2 or a 3 entry. I think making it 3 entries is at that point, I can't see how you can tell me that you can expand this game out enough to make 3 full length, as they want to say, entries. Now that Square Enix has not confirmed one way or another. Don't take it that way. But right now, while we're left in the dark, I would hope that it just be 2 games. But 2 also sounds a little weird to say when you say a multi-game. Multi-game sounds like it's going to be 3 or more.
Well, technically.
But technically 2 is still multiple.
Yeah,
2 is a multiple. You know that's what you're doing.
I do think that it's gonna.
Oh, to go to the point of, and it might be where you're going, and then I'll let you take. Is that
I'll see if you bring it up.
When the game has so much stuff already in it, I have one main reason as to why I think they would opt towards trying to put as much of the cities in the game as possible, and that's because if they want to keep the gap between the 2 releases as little as possible, one of the ways that you can do that is make the first game, and it would also justify this long development period, make the first game have pretty much everything in it, so that way the second game can come out 12 to 18 months at max later, with just the new characters that may have to be added in, and the new story and cutscenes and whatnot, and maybe some of the new mechanics that get introduced depending on how they do it.
I almost dropped a spoiler, but anyways, I wasn't thinking.
But do you agree with that?
I do think
I know
that
you want minimal time between the 2 of them.
I want minimal time, but I do think that there will be a really, really cool way how they do it, because I'm really curious how they do the world map. For that game. So what I'm curious about is that, like, it's kind of like cities in 15, and then you travel the roads. The world map is the roads, essentially. And then there's offshoots of that. I guess is the only way you could do that, right? Like, it's an open area. Like, there's certain dungeons over this way, certain caves over this way, right?
I mean, essentially, just think about if you took Final Fantasy VII's world
and just threw it into 15's engine or whatever.
Well, I'm thinking more like, because 15 is just a poorly done version of what Skyrim was trying to do, right? Where it's just, you have an area and all these cities exist in this world, but what we're doing now is the original overworld, where they kind of showed a very minimized version of what it would be like on a map. Take that and then try and extrapolate that into a way where it makes sense to where you can move between all these areas.
Right, and
that's more of the Skyrim approach.
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking, though. Honestly, when
that is what 15 has.
Well, yeah, and when you have a world map, I think it makes the most sense, right? And then what I really kind of want to see, this kind of goes off of what I doubt we'll see, but what I want to see is that the world map, not the traversal world map like in classic games, but when you pull up the map, it is the world map from the first game.
That would be cool.
And it's like, yeah,
that would be
for the
cool.
first, not for the first game, but for 7.
From the original release, yeah.
Yeah, but LCB, let us know what you want to see. I'm kind of curious about that.
Absolutely.
Crash the Animal with the last question of the round. Don't worry, Brandon. We did see yours.
Also a patron.
You made it late. You're both the patrons. Thank you. I had to do my 60-year-old New York woman smoking voice. Thank you. You're welcome.
Oh, darling.
Oh, darling. Crash says, if you guys could get a tattoo of any video game character, who would it be? This is a big deal for Brett, so I really want to know this one. I already know exactly what I would get.
My boy's killing me over here.
I'm going to get the sprite of Link from Link to the Past on my forearm. Like, right?
That's pretty
smack dab right
pretty good.
Here somewhere.
Pretty non-invasive. I'm trying to think, right? Because one of the big reasons I don't have a tattoo is I think it's really hard to choose something and try it. For me, everybody has their own thing.
Let me sell this idea for you. I can tell you right now.
Sell me.
Here's what you do. On the back of your bicep, that faces like out in the world, you get a meal.
So your tricep?
You get a meal's mask.
You know what's funny? I was about to say that.
I already knew that's what you're going to say.
I like a meal as a character. I like a meal from a visual standpoint. Yeah. I think his mask is really cool. And I think that when you use... Honestly, I might even get his whole body. I think Emil is a really cool done character.
There was an image... it's one of the official images of Emil that I saw that I actually really thought about wanting. But he's like... It's like he's falling, but he's doing like a stance in the air with his hand out. Yes. I was like, that would be a dope tattoo.
It's really cool art.
Part of a sleeve.
I like the way he looks in general. And I also think he's a great character. I don't think that this is true for everyone.
I agree for the context I got in.
I do not want to get a tattoo that I do not feel like has real meaning to me. I think sometimes people will go too quickly. And I mean, you can put as much meaning as you want to behind something, right? So it could be that you just go, I just happen to really like Call of Duty for Modern Warfare, so I'm going to get
a monster logo tattooed on my butt.
I'm going to get Captain Price tattooed on me, or I'm going to get the Call of Duty logo tattooed on me. You know what? That is fine. If that's what you want to do, and it's because you had the meaning behind all the time you've put into Call of Duty is there for you, that's cool. I have no problem with that. But because tattoos are so permanent, unless you want to pay tons of money and go through a lot of pain to get rid of one, I'm very careful about the idea of if I ever even got one, what would it be? One of the only things I've landed on where I would truly get a tattoo is something that Saul, I, and Blaze have talked about. I saw Blaze and I, if I'm being grammatically correct.
Yeah. What'd you say, Brett, Saul, and I?
I said Saul, I, and Blaze, which is terrible.
No, that's no.
But anyway, in that situation, I think that I would be okay with ever getting tattoos of anything that I've had a hand in that was terms of like a creation or something I was behind. So I would get the near conversion tattoo of our band logo. I'd get that because I was part of that, and I think it's cool to think back about that.
On your elbow or something.
Get a triangle squared logo. I probably would get a Narwhal Nartec logo because I like narwhals. That's cool already, and it works because it's Nartec.
Do you remember the idea we had at Hooters that one night?
I don't.
Where we would literally go out and get the first generation starters tattooed on us.
Oh, yes. Okay, I do remember
this.
Yeah,
I would do that. Like right now, I'd be like, obviously nobody wants them, and I like them. I'm going to get Bulbasaur.
Bulbasaur is awesome. What are you talking about?
Well, then I get Squirtle.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
No. It's awesome. Take them.
I'm not taking Squirtle either. All I'm saying is I don't agree with your assumption that nobody likes Bulbasaur.
I love Bulbasaur. I would honestly say he's my nostalgia. Never mind. That's too hard of a question for me. I refuse to answer that question. But thank you guys for watching episode 11 of our Reader Mail. Once again, we want to see everybody get involved and ask us questions. You always can ask us anything you want to know about us. Our favorite foods, what we like to eat, music, movies, TV shows, hobbies, stuff like that, just to get to know us better, because that is what we're here for. And, of course, tune in to the normal episodes of Triangle Squared every Monday at 10 a.m. PST, noon Central Time. And then, of course, Dickish at Best coming out the opposite Friday of this at 5 p.m. Central
First
Time.
Episode's already up. If you want to give it a listen, let us know what you think. We are finding our feet, but feedback is important.
New Patreons, you get episode 0.
Yep.
So you're gonna have 3 episodes by the time. This is 1 week old.
By the time that this is 3 days old, it'll be that following Monday after this goes live.
Dickish at Best comes out on Fridays.
Yeah.
How would it be 3 days? And this comes out on Friday?
Comes out on Mondays for patrons.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, there you go. Subscribe to our Patreon. Give us money. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thanks to our patrons, Chad V, Dan Barber, Josh Jarrell, Matthew Green, My Name is Dan, Douglas Below, Sean Santarud, Eric McAllister, Matt Sycamore, Shadowist, Steven Salazar, The Stonard, Travis Below, Eduardo Palomino, Stefan Swanlin, Coy Live, Philip LeGuerre, Corey Hickerson, Brian, Donovan Williams, William Digital Spooker, Derek Porter, Josh Ayers, Thomas McInnes, and new this week and this month, Brandon Edwards. If you would like to support us with as little as even $1, go to the link in the description or visit us at patreon.com/nartech.